Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Emily Sophia and I'm going to be breaking down for you guys the latest episode of Bates Motel. We got season 2, episode 3, Caleb. So spoiler alert before we dive into the thick of things, as I will be bearing all in this review, and furthermore after my latest review of Hannibal of the 3rd episode of the 2nd season, after that review gets over 1,000 views, I will be working on and uploading either a new song cover, or B, my review of the latest episode of The Walking Dead, the game, the Telltale version, okay? So one or the other. So feel free to watch that video if you have not yet already and you are into Hannibal. It is a fantastic freaking show, or you could get into the series and then go back and watch my reviews because it's a fun time. So anyways, let us discuss the atrocities of tonight, okay? So as compared to previous episodes, this is what I kind of like to call more of a slow burn. So we have all these really nuanced looks at characters and sort of as they're adjusting to circumstances, and again, you know, a lot more intricacies than enormous plot movement, except for what we get smacked with in the face at the end of the episode, which is kind of how things work. If we've got the slow burn throughout, then in the final 30 seconds you are going to find yourself floored by something. So make nice with the carpet because you are going to be down there by the end of things, okay? So we find out, you know, we all knew, those of us who are looking into the character of our dearly beloved Dylan, he's desperately seeking this father figure that he has lacked throughout his life, and in his thwarted attempts to find a healthy intimacy with Norma, all of a sudden he finds Caleb, this mysterious uncle from out of the blue, who tells him of his grandiose plans of this Costa Rican home and the life that he hopes to begin anew, and how he wants to involve Norma in the scheme after the struggles with the abusive father. The fact that this guy uses someone else's abuse to justify or to cover up his own, that he's using that abuse as a scapegoat, is, I am all kinds of not okay about this guy. You, my fine sir, are going down swinging. So anyways, these little bar dates that Dylan shares with the creep-tastic uncle whom he is so eager to court, things don't end up so well. His attempt to actually find this sort of intimacy, and he almost seems to get that, except that he does not know who this person genuinely is. The question is, does Caleb actually acknowledge Dylan as his son? Or is that kind of part of the web of secrets that Norma has kept to herself? I mean, being that she's the mother, working from the maternal end, it's easier to establish maternity rather than paternity. Okay, so obviously she's going to be the one to know, but I'm curious about that as well, because this guy strikes me as a rather manipulative son of a biscuit, so I'm pretty sure that it could be one way or the other, and that wouldn't really necessarily change things, because he is working the system, and he found this uncanny connection, and yet another hapless blonde person in the show. I swear, the blonde people in the picture are always, well, then again, we've got Team Brunette has literally the psycho on its side, but the blonde people have their share of problems as well. So I feel like I am continuously interrupting myself, so I apologize. I'm trying to get some thought out there, and all this stuff is competing to find its way. But at the end of the day, as soon as Dylan himself has been knocked onto the floor and is getting the Norman smackdown, he comes to discover just who this wonderful father figure is. Not merely a figure, but the father himself, and all the delightful, incestuous implications of this. Dear Lord. That is all I have to say for just about everyone in this episode. I cannot entirely fathom what's going to happen next, but I must say that every single actor and actress in this series has just got things on point. We see Norma as much as ever trying to fight against her vulnerable side and putting up this front, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm great. The way that she smiles, the way that she is so physically uncomfortable and yet exudes this grace. So you have this discomfort that's at the heart of things. And yet the package that comes in, Norma, despite her chaotic tendencies, has this natural charm. And I feel like that's the glue that's keeping this tower of popsicle sticks together, you know, because otherwise a wee breeze and we ain't got no structure no more. And I mean, and it seems like she is in a constant state of flux and breakdown, and yet somehow she continues to be this cohesive person. Or at least, you know, she's got a body with a soul inside of it, even if that's kind of ricocheting around the world. But, man, and having to see her confront that brother figure. And you know, we as an audience were put in a really interesting position this week because it's sort of like what Dylan was telling Caleb on their first man date about how he never knows what to believe from Norma, and we don't really know that either, except that she did confess to Norman about the sexual abuse on prom night. And so we kind of get the sense that she's telling the truth because of how close she is with Norman, but at the same time, it could all be a part of her own manipulations. And I mean, what we see with Norma from my perspective is that a world that has manipulated her, a brother who refused not only to protect her from the father, but not only posed an enormous threat, but injured her directly. The fact that she has lived in this world that's had it out for her, seems to have constructed a woman who's got it out for the world. She's going to say what she needs to say and do what she needs to do to survive. And that's why she's never even honest, even when people are trying to dig in and save her from the storm inside, to choose a kind of cliche. But we see that Dylan is trying to throw out the lifeline, and she quite not elatedly, but energetically declines said invitation to actually begin to heal from what's going on. She would rather, you know, keep that under her breastplate, so she's hardened against the world around her, and yet she's being eaten up by the things that are under the armor, you know? And so that is a truly tragic thing to see, and despite how frustrated we may get with Norma for pushing out Dylan in his honest attempts to make her feel better, we see such a freaking sensitive side to Dylan in this episode. Bless the guy's heart. But he is as idealistic as his own dear mama when it comes to these people in his life, these people that he connects to. Just as Norma is idealistic as ever about Norman. And now she's all kinds of distracted from what's even going on with her son right now, and I feel that this is just the beginning of that rift that's going to prove very problematic over time, because she's kind of caught up with this new friend circle that she got pulled into by the ex-director of South Pacific, who was like, dude, you deserve the part, screw the man, screw the institution, let's party. Garden party in the frickin' state of Oregon. There is no such thing as a garden party out here. I know, I live in Southwest Washington, I go to Oregon all the time. I don't know where you find such lavish estates, but I feel like they must be in like some sky city or somewhere magical, because you just don't really see that kind of stuff around there. And nor do you get such fantastically, exuberantly sunny weather, which was making Vera Farmiga look so freaking gorgeous at that party. But anyway, so she's distracted with this whole new social life, and she's finding herself supported by so many new figures. Not only this woman who's befriended her and is filling her up with peach martinis, but the brother, George, who seems to be very much interested in this beguiling blonde mistress, and he is filling her up with cookies. I swear these people are just trying to fatten her up to, like, roast her or something. Knowing White Pine Bay, it's all part of their big kind of voodoo scheme. And then Norma also encounters this guy who knows how the town works. He's also against the bypass, and he's acting all shady and sinister and like, well, I can't really represent your interests even though I agree with you because small town politics, more like witchcraft. That's kind of what I feel is running this place. It's witchcraft and booze and pot cookies. So pot brownies, you know. Basically, I feel like somewhere there's a pot bakery, bringing the goods in every possible confection you could desire. You know, it ain't just sugar these days, you know. Just doesn't cut it. Anyways, but so Norma is in this whole new social network. She is trying, and I'm not talking about Facebook. She's trying to figure out how this town works, how she can get it to work to her own personal advantage, which is what she needs in trying to build herself as a strong person, to show everyone that despite what has happened to her, the little tip of the iceberg that everybody's seen, and she knows how poorly that reflects on her, she's trying to build a new self. And yet this is basically, we're in the sea of little iceberg tips. And when you start draining the water, you see how everything is so convoluted and connected and all the toxicity of that. So we are only on the tip of the iceberg. Indeed, Norma couldn't have said it better. But basically Norma is all kinds of distracted. And even though she sees this violence of Norman's exerted on her behalf, I think that she's still so overwhelmed with the return of her brother that she doesn't really have room to consider the overarching implications in the film that Alfred Hitchcock is going to make in the years to come, or in the years behind, but you know, time, whatever. We disrupt it. But so we have Norman, and we've got some interesting movement with his characters. Again, really subtle stuff. This episode was more about the other characters. We also got to see Emma again, and bless her heart as well for trying to host this the memorial for Bradley, to try to get herself to feel for this girl. But I love her honesty and what she says about how she dislikes herself because she's unable to like Bradley even though she's dead. You know, I think that all of us can really relate to that, and I think that if we are all honest with ourselves about the people that we dislike, we avoid a lot of dishonesty and heartbreak down the road by building up these false friendships, and Emma never really puts on those fronts, you know. Although we can argue that she's putting on a front to herself and trying to sort of drift off into this fantasy land with Cupcake Boy. It's Cupcake Boy, and I don't know what Emma's super nickname would be in this dynamic duo of well, insert pot nickname here. But the whole sort of fallout of the memorial and how it kind of degrades into the party scene, which I can attest that is very much a thing in the Northwest. Not a lot to do out here, so people just kind of revel in the substance sometimes. I'm not one of those types, but you see it happening. She sort of decides to go with the flow and to stop resisting, and also realizing her own physical condition as well, the sickness that she has. So she goes full YOLO mode and boozing it up and failing to hold that down, all in the company of this boy with whom she is trying to get jiggy with, I think. I think that she's still hurt about the situation with Norman. She can't quite reach him, even in the situation with Bradley. There's just not that electricity there that she longs for, so she's gonna take somewhere else. So I hope very much for her that, you know, I don't necessarily want her to just stay on the straight and narrow, but I want her to find herself and be at peace, and unfortunately, dear souls like that rarely find their way to that place. So, love you, honey, but you're in a TV show. Wish I could help, but you are sure to meet a sorry fate for the entertainment of the masses. It's kind of going Hunger Games style. But anyways, so we got that, and then, of course, so we get to see Norman and his relationship with Cody, and she sort of presents this force of, I think, a sort of anarchy for him as compared to the other people and the structure that he's in right now. She's eventually going to start trying to tease Norman out of himself and try to get him not to take things so seriously. But, you know, were it not for Norman's sense of control, quote unquote control, which he is subject to losing, but he generally has this very cautious and ordered approach to life, and that is but thinly veiling the chaos and craziness within that this girl is going to unwittingly call out, and I feel that some of those demons are going to come out to play in the front yard instead of the backyard or the basement, thanks to this girl. Mind you, I'm not saying that all women are treacherous, but women are treacherous. We know it, and our sisters know it. That's just kind of the way of things. we are conduits to crazy and catalysts of demises of worlds, basically. So now that you know the truth, keep that in mind. Watch out for those Codys. But yeah, and also, so I think at the very end, and I was kind of looking down at my phone and live tweeting during this moment, but I looked up briefly and Cody was saying something about her dad like looking out the window, or I thought that I saw him looking out the window, and then Norman was asking like, oh, are you not allowed to like go out? And so I feel that Cody's dad might become a bigger figure in times to come, or even just to kind of make some parallels with Norman's situation where he's got mother and she has father. You know, the kind of yin and yang, they have a lot of those paralleled and complementary relationships in the show, so I think that's going to be very interesting to see over time if they go in that direction, or if it's going to be more about Norman having someone to kind of be more intimate with, but in this sort of new intimacy coming out of his shell. Perhaps a shell that he is best left within if he wants to not kill people. So that's the problem. What else? I think that I generally kind of touched on everything. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the trailers that I saw for the season earlier on, it seems that they're pretty far-reaching. There's a lot of material that we haven't gotten to yet that I'm kind of bracing myself for as well. And I think that this was a pretty valuable episode in the grand scheme of things. Probably later we're going to go back to what's going on with Romero and the guy that he's accused of Miss Watson's murder and how that's going to re-emerge. I don't know if all of you have seen the previews for the upcoming episodes, but if you have, feel free to comment below and sort of discuss your predictions, because I kind of want to do that here, but at the same time, if you don't know what's going on and you kind of want to have more of that edge of surprise, then I don't want to be the one to ruin that for you. But yeah, so we got Emma and Norman and Norma and Dylan and Caleb and all the fun of White Pine Bay. I really like that the show has sort of brought the town as a character itself, and you know, we'll see what Norma is due to discover soon. about this fair city and what influence that might have on her beloved boy, or boys, plural. But I'm pretty anxious. The drama is stewing, and I've really enjoyed this season so far. I'm loving it. I honestly don't have a ton of complaints. Great moment with Norma when she first encountered Caleb and the way that she just hawked the groceries across the room. I called that. I felt that in my bones, and she felt it too. And we had this cathartic moment where she did exactly what I sensed in every fiber of my being she was gonna do. So props to you, woman. I feel for you. I fear for you. I fear for you all and the influence that you are going to have on each other. So let us in our own lives be good to one another and rejoice in how much easier our lives are as compared to these fictional friends and foes. And thank you so much for watching this review. It has been a pleasure as always. And if there's anything that I forgot to mention, please address it in the comments. I would love to chat with you or just read them as I go. It'll be lots of fun. So things are getting around. We'll see what comes. I like the mystery and all the moving pieces. It's meeting me pretty well. So y'all take care. And I will be back before you know it.